Many citizens across the globe are facing a crisis right now. A crisis labeled by medical experts as Bocchi the Rock Withdrawals. And while I can't help you with that, I do have a possible solution that can curb your youngster band needs. Enter BanG Dream It's MyGO. At its core, BanG Dream It's MyGO is a fantastic band anime that explores the concepts of individual driving forces, personal insecurities that center around a dream that once was. However, marred by the problem facing many anime drama series, melodrama. Yes, that's right, melodrama. But is it enough to ruin the series? That's what I'm going to get into with my review of BanG Dream It's MyGO, a series that was running in the fall 2023 anime season, done by Again. Yes, the CGI company, but don't let that push you away. Let's jump into it. BanG Dream It's MyGO opens up with a band named Crychix. It's like Crychix, but it's Crychix. I don't know. It's Japanese. They're trying to do the English thing. But it looks like everything's going well. They had their first debut. They did really well, but there's some criticism still out there. But they take their criticisms and they keep moving forward until Saki shows up, one of their band members, and says, I quit. I'm done. I'm moving on. And that just completely destroys the entire band. This is a band that many of the members, including Tamori, believe that they would be together forever, be band members for life. So yeah, this kind of hits a lot of the members really hard. But then jump to Anon, a girl that is very Genki, but seems to have some sort of issues herself, arriving back home and going to a new school. And very quickly, she realizes everybody in this school has a band. Yeah, we get a sense in this world, it seems like all people like bands and everybody wants to be in a band. It's like the big thing is to be in a band. And she's like the only one in her school that's not in a band. So she begins to look around, trying to find anybody that will join a band together with her, and hopefully she'll become the vocalist of the band, be the center of the band. And then she really quickly realized that one of the other members of her school, Tomori, is not a part of a band. And yes, as we know, Tomori was a part of this Crychix. And it's very obvious very quickly that Tomori does not want to be a part of a band. It seems like whatever happened back then with Crychix is still weighing on her. And over a period of time, while Anon's trying to get Tomori to join the group, she's slowly learning about Crychix, she's meeting the other members of the group, and they eventually form another band. And this new band is consisting of 3 members of Crychix: Tomori, Soyo, and Taki. Eventually, this girl known as the Stray Cat joins the group as well, and they start their own band. All the while having this uneasiness about their group. Some of the members, including Soyo, is just literally trying to rebuild Crychix, while other members are struggling over this rebuilding like Tomori. So my thoughts on BanG Dream It's MyGO. Let me start off with the visuals. This is, of course, Again, so this is CGI. This is kind of akin to something like Love Live with their kind of CGI look, just pretty much the whole show. Now, definitely not to the caliber of Love Live. Love Live has had a long time with Sunrise and really building a very crafted style. And I've personally never had too much of a problem with Again as a CGI company. I think they do a really good job. And I really do feel like with this particular iteration, it looks like they have really refined their craft. There's a lot more expressiveness and stuff to the characters' faces that is definitely feeding itself to seeing the emotion of the characters and the joys of the characters. And so while there is still this ongoing stigma around CGI anime, I think this is one of the better ones. But it still has its little issues with things like whenever there's a side character, a character that's not on the screen very often, suddenly they're in 2D. And it has a little bit of a jarring aspect to that, but again, they're getting better at kind of blending the two of them. Where they definitely shine is whenever it comes to the performances themselves, seeing a lot of the characters in different perspectives, and the directing is really doing a great job of not just giving them some really flat CGI environments. Overall, the performances are really fantastic, and seeing the emotion in the characters' faces, where there's sorrow, where there's pain, is definitely coming across. So yes, while it is a CGI anime, I think it looks really fantastic. While not always spectacular, I do give a lot of credit to the directing work that was done in this series as well. Having an entire episode from Tomori's perspective was really incredible. And again, it's one of those things that sort of added to my love of the character herself. How isolated she feels was more easily portrayed from her own eyes. I thought they did a lot of incredible stuff with this series that, yes, sadly it's CGI, but it's still told a really great story through it. Additionally, being a band show, yes, the music itself is really well done. I think early on they did a good job of kind of portraying that issue that the characters are having with kind of becoming in sync. Far too often in the past, whenever you had a band anime show or something like that, whenever it comes time for them to go on the stage, everything's like perfect because they're trying to sell music CDs on the side of the show itself. But again, this one's did a really good job of kind of balancing that, not relying too much on pristine recordings for the performances themselves, but rather portraying what the characters are struggling with. What is off sync? If a character is struggling with singing, they're going to have that actually portrayed in the song itself. But yeah, so a lot of the performances are fantastic though. My only problem I think I really have is in Tomori and her vocals. Even later on in the series, when it seems like everybody has their act together, it really does feel like she gets kind of overpowered by the instruments. Maybe by choice, but it was hard to really hear her sometimes. Something I really didn't face with any of the performances, so I assume it's really a case of their recording. But visuals and music and all that stuff aside, let's dive into the story itself. I'm of two minds of this series. On one hand, I really, really love Tomori's story. I think it was a really fascinating look at somebody that is seemingly not comfortable with coming out. I wouldn't necessarily say she's an introvert. I wouldn't even say she's got some sort of OCD, but it seems like she's somewhere in there. This is obviously somebody that has been special her entire life, and she has seen a lot of issues because of that. As we get her flashbacks, we see that she likes to do different things than most children. She's kind of off to the side by herself, collecting things. Very difficult for her to find herself to speak out to other people, to meet friends, and this is something that has completely isolated her. All of the things that she'd want to say, she never speaks. Instead, she always writes it down. And by some happenstance, a person from her past, Saki, ends up seeing these books and assumes that they are lyrics, taking everything that has been bottled up in Tomori, everything that she's been unable to speak out, everything she's been unable to vocalize was in those words. And thus, the music that she ends up putting together with Saki, who's able to kind of compose it into a song, becomes the way that Tomori can finally have her voice. It's a really impactful story that I think was really, really gut-wrenching. This was finally a moment where somebody could finally say what she's never been able to say, fighting off all the fears that she has and finally getting on that stage and vocalizing it. It's an amazing story that I really did love. Yes, a lot of band stories and idol stories center on this person that is supposed to be the center and the vocalist that has fears of being on a stage. That is a trope across pretty much every single idol show for sure. But I think the way they addressed Tomori was a more fascinating route. Showing all these little things that she does on the side when she's not performing that definitely lends itself to somebody that has some sort of introvertness that is not something that most people face. Again, like the whole aspect of collecting bandages, collecting rocks, stuff like that. That sort of add to the believability of somebody who just is trying to find her own world. I would tell most people, even aside all my negatives I'm going to get into in a minute, this right here was enough for me to make a fantastic story. I rooted for Tomori. I hurt for her. And I struggled with all the other characters because they would not give her enough attention and not enough time to deal with her issues. She's constantly being pulled and pushed away by other people's needs, and it's all to the detriment of somebody who is special that is finally opening up, finally finding her home. So let's get into that. Let's get into the other characters, which is sadly where I get into my joke about the melodrama. Because yes, these other characters are melodrama incarnate. I like the base concept of the story here. This idea of this group of members coming together, making a band, which is a very difficult thing. It's not band exclusive. This is really anything that is where multiple children come together to form together and have to be united. It's a very difficult thing. Everybody has their own desires. And yes, being younger, they all have a lot more drama that they're going to get stuck on. Things are hard to let go. Things are difficult to express. All those things kind of compound to make a group very difficult to stay together. The problem with this story overall and the story of Crysis is more in the idea of that being a bait throughout the entire series, which I'm perfectly fine with. I'm perfectly fine with this concept of a dream that once was, it fell apart, and then throughout the entire series, some people want it to come back together because they tasted it. They tasted this dream and they want to get back to this dream. But not everybody's coming back onto the same page. Some people are kind of accepting it. Some people are pushing away. No matter what, it's difficult to get the whole group to agree on, let's come back together. And that's something that a lot of characters deal with differently. Again, Saki is literally like, I don't want to be a part of this. Mutsumi doesn't seemingly care. Soyo is just desperate for it to come back together and will do anything for it to come back together. And Tomori is in the middle, like I said, just being hurt by the whole thing. Again, she's the one that was given finally something. A place where she can express herself. A place where she can finally be comfortable, and it's ripped from her. And she doesn't know if she can trust it again. Everybody's hurt by Crysis in different ways. But the problem comes in how that's expressed and drugged through the entire series. I understand that wounds never heal fast. I understand that it's difficult for some people to let things go. But when it becomes the focus, you assume that something will actually come of it. You assume that you're going to get an answer for something. This is like the age-old joke that I have with a lot of series where there's so much drama, there's so much overacting, that at some point you start to wonder, okay, who killed Saki's sister? Who killed Saki's mother? Somebody had to have murdered somebody that Saki knows because she's so vicious about this and she won't say anything. That's where that melodrama comes out. It's Sayo having this overly expressive face as she's clawing at the side of Saki, begging her to please come back. And you're wondering, okay, let's all chill, sit down, and talk. And yes, children have issues expressing what is bugging them. Some don't feel others will understand them. But at some point, when you keep hitting on this for an entire 13 episodes, I want an answer. And sadly, with is pretty much this series' biggest stain, it doesn't answer that. You can make an assumption based on the big reveal at the end of the series, what that exactly is. And I'm sure going into the second season, which is already announced, which is going to be apparently focused on Saki, we're probably going to finally get that answered. But it still kind of just bugs me that the entire series, 13 episodes of It's MyGO, I never get an answer for what caused it to even start. Again, I can make my assumptions, and definitely based on the final shot, I can get that assumption, but it still bugs me that this is the driving force of these characters, and yet I don't get answers. Especially when it drives certain characters, like Soyo, like Taki, to act overly vicious about it. It's a mean girls thing, and again, that's a real thing. Drama is great. I love drama. But there's a barrier point where when characters go from acting normally outraged, normally mad, and become overly mad and overly emotional, it almost becomes fantastical with how it's trying to portray a scene. And it unfortunately irks me. But again, that's not to say that I didn't love the rest of the show. And again, most of that is because I love Tomori's story. And I even loved Anon's story. And I like the two of them as a basis for the overall story itself. That was my driving force to keep going. Every time Tomori got on the stage, my heart sunk for her. Every time Tomori opened her mouth on the stage, I wept for her. This is a character that is extremely broken and continues to be wounded by a lot of very selfish people, which are, yes, flaws that are understandable. I just really wish that I had more of an emotional connection to the other characters as I did Tomori, because that's where I think the writing did an incredible job. In the end, BanG Dream! It's MyGO was a really, really great ride for me, despite my misgivings of the constant melodrama that sort of stained it a little bit. It still has great characters, all have driving forces that were all pretty much scattered through this breakup, and ultimately coming together for a common goal. The music was really fantastic, the performances were really great, a lot of the storytelling was done through the performances, which I thought was really incredible. Having aspects like storytelling of inner conflict told through the performances themselves, because like I said earlier, yes, technically Tomori's vocals are all her inner thoughts. A lot of little details like that I thought was really well done. In the end, turning into a really solid series. So yes, I really do recommend checking out this series. It's a really sad state that something like this only has 9,000 members on MAL, which is criminal. But I do kind of understand the fact that a lot of people have sort of hesitations getting into a series that is technically a sequel, but not really a sequel to, yes, a multi-season series of BanG Dream! For people wondering if it's something that you can jump into without the previous iterations, yes. It's this new characters, they're in the same world. It's in a world that is slightly later on than the previous seasons, but it's kind of one of those series that sort of, you get little cameos of the previous characters and where they're at now. Not necessarily that you have to know about them. Nothing is going to be taken away by not having the context of the previous seasons, and none of the characters are really there besides one that is sort of a callback to a previous season character. At its core, this is these characters of this season, this is their story, and there's nothing else that really is needed in order to understand it. But anyhow, that's my review of BanG Dream! It's MyGO! Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know thought of the series if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.